Back in line! You talk! You talk! On your feet! On your feet! Get them going! Get them going!
Forget everything you thought you knew about light. Actually, well, keep most of it. Just add 48 dimensions. Scientists running what was supposed to be a routine quantum optics experiment stumbled onto something that no one was looking for and no one fully expected. Entangled light, the quantum phenomenon where two particles of light become linked regardless of distance, doesn't just carry information the way physicists assumed. It contains hidden topological structures of staggering complexity, specifically up to 48 dimensions worth of complexity. To understand why that's extraordinary, you need to understand what was assumed beforehand. Quantum information has typically been encoded in what are called qubits, quantum bits that exist in a superposition of two states simultaneously. Two states, two dimensions. The entire architecture of quantum computing has been built around manipulating those two states as efficiently as possible. What this research found is that light itself, through a single property called orbital angular momentum, can naturally carry topological structures spanning 48 dimensions simultaneously. Not 2, 48. Each dimension is a potential channel for encoding information. Each channel multiplies the complexity and capacity of what can be transmitted. The researchers are describing it as finding a vast new alphabet for quantum information. Previously, science was working with 2 letters. This suggests the alphabet actually has 48.
Welcome everyone to Cross Examinations. I'm your host, Mike S. Miller. I'm not a pastor, priest, rabbi, all that stuff. I'm just a guy on the internet finding stuff like that. Right? Light itself. I mean, to dumb that down, life itself is a pathway for information with a 48 letter, I know. This is a little simplified. 48 letter alphabet. Life is a code. Light is a code for delivering information. And we just discovered this now, and we discovered it on accident. What else in God's creation is that complex? I mean, we already know light is weird because it acts like a wave and it acts like a particle and blah 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 and all that stuff. But now, on top of everything else, we have discovered it's also a delivery system for information. Everything in this universe, from the subatomic, from the quantum physics realm, even points to this universe requiring a creator. A creator, given any other name, is God. And that's why I said it yesterday. I know people are just coming in, but that's why I said yesterday, it's like God is axiomatic. It's not our job to prove God exists. It's the atheist's job to prove he doesn't. And there you go. There's another huge piece of evidence that it's the hurdles of creation that the atheist has to surmount in order to maintain their foolish faith. There is no creator, that there is no God. I'm okay with I'm not going to say I'm okay with it. I would hope that everyone becomes a Christian and believes in the truth. But it's understandable for people to be agnostic to the point where I just don't know, and I just can't know, and I don't. Yes, all this evidence shows clearly that there has to be a mind behind the creation of everything, from the quantum to the macro to the micro. Every part of the universe is obviously designed, but maybe it's just that we live in the in the hologram of a sentient super space alien, any excuse to get away from understanding that there's a God that created this universe. For example, Corpse Grinder here. That's not how claims work, Mike. People claim God needs to prove God. That's not true. You don't have to claim an axiom. An axiom is self-evident. God is self-evident. Your claim is that the universe could have created itself. Prove your claim. In opposition to everything we know about the universe. Everything being designed and balanced and abiding laws which also require a creator. Everything points axiomatically to a creator God, Corpse Grinder. So no, I'm sorry. You don't have to prove an axiom. You don't have to claim an axiom. God, the creation, is an axiom. Creation of the universe and God being real are two different topics. See, that's what I said. Right? You can make the logical leap that, okay, I so don't want to believe that the creator of the universe is God that I will open up the floodgates to any possibility other than God that created the universe. But the creation is an obvious truth. In other words, it's an axiom. The universe was created by a creator. Now, the rational, normal person who doesn't just have a stick up their butt about not wanting to believe in God says, well, obviously the creator is God. Those are equivalent phrases. Creator, God. Creator, God. Creator, God. Unless you're a polytheist who believes there's a creator God, and then there's like the God of the trees or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's not about wanting to believe. It's being convinced into believing. No, you've been convinced into not believing an axiom. And then, look, there are people who don't believe in axiomatic truths. That's fine. We call those people, what is a word for someone who doesn't believe in reality? What is a word for someone who doesn't believe in obvious truth? Flat earthers? That's an example. The atheist today might as well be a flat earther. Did you watch the video at the beginning, Corpse Grinder? Quantum physicists have discovered that light itself is a 48 letter, this is a short version, the 48 dimensional, actually he said a minimum of 48, but a 48 dimension information transfer system. Light itself is 24 times more complex than the previously presumed or assumed, is it assumed or presumed? Presumed complexity of the binary of light. It's now, they've discovered that it's an information transferring system that is light. It's not just a beam of particles. It's actually far, far, far more complex. And what is the point of an information transfer system if there's no information to be transferred? And how do you get information except for from an intelligent mind? And if the being who created the information transfer system known as light is not an intelligent not an intelligent source, explain that through random meaningless explosion of non-matter into matter. These are not physical dimensions in space, but informational layers. Again, information has to come from an intelligence, Corpse Grinder. You can't hop over that hurdle. And light itself. What was the first command of God in the creation of the universe? let there be light. The word, the intelligence, created light as a source of informational transference. You can't get away from it. There is nothing in this universe that could be without the intelligence behind it being created. I know you don't want to believe that's God. You got to get over yourself, brother, because at this point, you're just proving the axiom that he who says there is no God is a fool. I don't know if you know, but we have been using light and fiber optics for years now. Yes, but this particular, that's a binary. That is a binary. This is 48 layers deeper dimensionally, 48 dimensions of information transfer. What do you think about the big band? I love big band music. Suggesting that everything came into existence from nothing. I mean, that's as far as you can go back, right? Because that's when time and space began. At what they call the Big Bang. To me, that's just God saying, let there be light. And lo, there was light. And lo, light for the 6,000 years we've been around just became a hell of a lot more complex than we ever understood because of quantum computing, quantum physics. Believing has nothing to do with being convinced. Oh, I don't agree with that. You can be totally totally convinced into believing something. You can be totally convinced and still not believe something. That's true, but I'm not going to say it's got nothing to do with it. Are we done with Shad now? Well, I just thought this was infinitely more interesting. I mean, you're without excuse. Now, the deeper you get into science, the more you're without excuse for being an atheist. A good word would be deluded, right? That's you can be convinced into being wrong. And actually, you know, even the flat earther has a better excuse than the atheist, because literally 99.9999999% of people have never been to outer space, right, to see the earth. So all of that information is taken on faith. All of it, except for the sunset. You can't have a sunset on a flat earth because the sun never goes below the clouds on a flat earth. So when you see the sun setting and then the sun rays hit the bottom of the clouds, that can't happen on a flat earth. So I don't want to get into the whole flat earth thing, but I'm just saying flat earthers are more reasonable than atheists. Tavis says, so Odin, Zeus, it's Zamna, Ometotl, Amun-Ra, the Great Spirit, and various other creator gods are real. Zeus wasn't the creator god, if I recall correctly. Anyways, that's not the point. And I don't think Odin is the creator god either. He's the all-father of the other gods, but he's not the creator of the universe itself. But there are other creator gods, Wakantanka, Shangti, Hananim. There are creator gods. I'm not saying that they're real, or I'm not even saying they're not real. They are, like in the case of Shangti. Shangti was the creator god, the heavenly emperor of the Chinese ancient folk religion. And he was very much described as the creator god we know. So the creator god of the Bible, actually, even. Same with Hananim in Korea. Same with Wakantanka. And look, the memory of the creator God in all the different folk religions, I believe very much is a memory of the true creator God, the singular creator God. That's a whole conversation about the Tower of Babel and the people having a shared memory about the creation, about Genesis, about all that stuff, and going back all the way in time to Noah. A lot of these people, they share. I mean, the flood myth is ubiquitous around the planet. There's up to 600 flood myths from disparate people around the planet. They all talk about that creator God. They got mad at the human race, and in all the different languages, they have different names for that creator God. But if you're talking about the one creator God, that's the history of man. I mean, that's the history of that's history. Sorry, I don't have any water in here, so if my throat dries out, I'm going to be in trouble. Bobcat says, I heard someone say that one of our main elements' half-life is 60,000 years, indicating Earth can't be older than that. Well, there's also a problem, is that the half-life of like carbon, it assumes a steady rate of decay. Also, it assumes a constant of our atmosphere, like how much oxygen was in the atmosphere, how much carbon was in the atmosphere throughout creation, right? So is it possible that well, it's not possible, it's probable, it's in actually the model before C14 was even a concept. The model of the Earth surrounded by another firmament, which created sort of a greenhouse effect, which would have made the Earth's atmosphere much more oxygen dense. I don't know about carbon and all that stuff, but it would have been a different, denser atmosphere, which is why in the fossil you see 3-foot wide mosquitoes. I don't know if it's 3 foot wide. You see giant mosquitoes, you see giant bugs, you see giant asparagus, you see like gigantism. Speaking of gigantism, you see gigantism in the fossil record, right? Like huge versions of. You ever see that movie? Was it BC? Was it called BC? Was it Caveman? I don't know, but it was Ringo Starr was in it, and they were like the giant mosquito like sucking his blood. That stuff, it's because they got that out of the fossil record. And they turned it into a joke. But speaking of gigantism, Devil's Tower, I even have that on here. Hold on a second. How do I freaking reduce this? You can't seem to get. Oh, there we go. Click. Since we're talking about gigantism, I can present this. Let me mute it. Devil's Tower. Right. That is so obviously a tree. And apparently they have just discovered it's got a root system underneath it that's like 4 miles deep and like 7 miles wide. A root system. That is not a geological artifact. That's obviously a giant tree. So 3 foot tall asparagus, however hundreds of feet tall Devil's Tower was as a tree, whatever. You had gigantism, which means the atmosphere was different prior to the flood. Because the atmosphere was different, it would have altered what you would measure in a C14 in the half-life of whatever, because the half-life model assumes a constant atmosphere going back as far back as you can record, as it records. Computer code was binary for years too, and now we can use more digits. It's just tech advancement. This is a discovery, Corpse Grinder. We didn't add 48 dimensions to light. This is a discovery that light has 48 dimensions within it that transfer code, that transfer information, an alphabet, a language delivery system. We haven't had quantum computers for very long, so of course we're going to find ways to improve the data transfer. We are not changing light. It's a discovery of a pre-existent state. How aren't you grasping that? In Greek mythology, there's no single creator god like the Abrahamic religions. Instead, creation was a multi-stage process, starting with primordial deities, the protogenoi. Greg says, I'm always disappointed to see how quick people are to defend imperialism, colonialism, and exploitation this day and age. Anytime I bring up Alberta's struggle for independence from Canada. I'm all for imperialism and colonialism and not exploitation, but I'm a contrarian. It's like saying the invention of a hexadecimal proves God. Invention and discovery are not the same thing. The discovery of the golden ratio was not the invention of the golden ratio. The discovery of mathematics was not the invention of mathematics. 2 plus 2 was always 2 plus 2 before man ever discovered that they could add 2 and 2 together, right? Discovery is not. In fact, that's what science is. Science is the discovery of how God made the universe, or how God's creation works. Cross-examination. I can't even do that. Tongue-tied. Just go get yourself a water. We'll wait. I might have to. Hyperbaric pressure, etc. Yes, exactly, Buffett. Greg says, evolution has more than proven itself to be a brilliant and successful design for the proliferation and propagation of life, if it was indeed designed. No, you have just been educated, in quotes, to believe that's the case. I was an evolutionist too until I discovered all of the evidence against it that just kind of made it fall apart in my hands like building a sand castle in your hand. What a terrible metaphor. Mud fossils, Mike? Come on, man. You'll fall for anything. Mud? What's mud fossils? What are you talking about? A root system? Now that's super cool. Yeah. I'd like to see them do that with LiDAR. That'd be freaking crazy. I find it odd that Christians would be inclined to reject and dismiss what is possibly the most compelling evidence for God that we have. Are you claiming that evolution is compelling evidence for God? I mean, what? Devil's Tower was not a tree. No one has found a root system beneath it. This is apparently, unless they're just lying. But there's the claim. I haven't looked into it. So, mountains aren't giant trees. That's silly. I'm pointing at my other screen, but you could just look at it. Devil's Tower is not the only giant tree on Earth. I hate to break it to you. Hold on a second. Giant tree stumps. All right, let's see. So Devil's Tower, that's one. Giant tree stump. This is obviously a gel. I mean, it's got the rings to it. I mean, oh, look at this one too. I mean, that's obviously just a normal, probably sequoia or something. You can see those still today, but look, there's a whole bunch of them. And then even and these they call them, I think they call them basalt. Whatever you these cell structures, which is what they are all over the freaking planet. Oh, here's another one. Yeah, sure, that's just a freaking no, dude. They're giant trees. I'll die on this hill. You can't just freaking explain that away. In fact, there's one in Central Park. Nobody ever notices it. Hold on. Let me see. I was in Central Park and I'm standing on this rock structure. Devil's Kitchen entrance, Central Park rock formation. You go look at this thing. Dang, how? All right, Central Park rock formation. I have photos of it, but I don't want to dig through my Dropbox. Devil's Kitchen entrance. Why is this so hard to find? Let me just look up rock formation. There it is. There it is. You go and just right there. There's a giant freaking tree in Central Park. It's ginormous and it's obviously a freaking tree. When you're standing on it and you're looking at it, it's laying on its side. It's been felled. But you just look at the design. These aren't. I have way better pictures on my Dropbox. I should grab it sometime. But the whole thing, yeah, look at this. It's a freaking tree. When you're looking at it and you're standing on it and you're like, okay, if this thing wasn't as big as it is, anybody would be like, oh, it's a petrified tree. But it's so big that it's like because of our mindsets that the world is always, oh, it's always billions of years old and blah, blah, blah. No, something was freaking weird about pre-Diluvian Earth that gigantized stuff. One of the things it did was trees. And obviously, it's been petrified over time. I don't know. Is this the same one? I don't know if it's the same one. But if you're in New York, go to the Central Park Hell's Kitchen entrance and just walk straight in. And then you'll see it. You just walk straight in to the roundabout part, and it's a giant gray rock formation. Just go and look at it, and you'll just be like, "There's a motherfucking tree." It can't. There's no erosion that would carve out stone to look like a tree. It's not like layers of sediment that create the tree. It's a freaking tree. You'll never convince me otherwise. Did you see the Edmontosaurus they found with skin? Still trying to figure out its actual skin. People that have it are not clear. Edmontosaurus. No, I'll look it up though. What should I Google? Edmontosaurus with skin. Oh, the mummy? How dinosaur mummies to new fossil help solve the mystery. Oops. Gosh dang it. Not one of these. I can't read the article. I'm not going to pay for it. Sorry. I'm too cheap to pay for subscriptions to magazine. Amy, data storage and transfer system is absolutely code in any way you slice it. That's definitionally what a code is, right? And a code requires an intelligence. Sorry. That's why it's such a joke that people say, RNA is first building block. Okay, RNA, the information coded into RNA that makes it a purposeful piece of biology or a building block of life is completely useless without A, a biological mechanism to work within, but B, without an intelligent code that allow that RNA to understand what its purpose was to begin with. The information has to precede the creation. The information has to come from an intelligence. That's just how it works. It's so obviously true. Again, the fool in his heart says there is no God, because you have to be a fool to think that code just appears by itself without an intelligence behind it and then directs life to create more complexity. That's why evolution is so stupid. Contrarian, huh? I suffer from that affliction myself. I typically disagree more with people that agree with me for more than they disagree with me. What? Who the hell? What is that? Is that Telegram? Or Discord? Is that a Discord call? No. Who is on what? This is weird. Facebook? I hate all this. We're gonna have to ignore this ringing. Devil's Tower is made out of igneous rock, not a petrified wood. Igneous rock is volcanic. There's no volcano. And there's no volcano that would make that rock formation. You've seen volcanoes, right? You've seen how volcanoes create rock. That is not. That just makes no sense. Just use your brain for a second. That makes zero sense. Absolutely, why not? I know if I was a creator, I would definitely find a way or write a code that could automate the process, or else it would be incredibly demanding to manage it all. Yeah, but if you're omniscient and you're omni-powerful, what's the word for omni-powerful? That's not right. It's demanding doesn't really mean anything to you. You don't get exhausted. And also, the 7 days of creation, the 6 days of creation is all you really needed, because everything after the 6 days of creation, everything was done. And then he went into rest. And we're in his rest now. He no longer is creating things. He created, and now he's done. Our ranch was a little south of Devil's Tower. It is not a tree. Yes, it is, Arlene. Yes, it is. Devil's Tower was named after 1875 expedition, blah, blah, blah. Bear Lodge, Bad God's Tower? What? Local native phrases like Bear Lodge or Bad God's Tower. Yeah, that was the Native American thing. Was like, it was a bear like clawed the side. That's why it's got the grooves down the side of it. Of course, they didn't realize that it's those giant cells. It's called Devil's Tower because it proves God, obviously. Mike is going to be showing us rocks that are shaped like hearts as proof next. Huh? And all the flaws or inadequacies in theory of evolution are explained immediately if it was designed. It makes a lot more sense that it was calculated, designed, and ran than random happenstance. No. The thing is, the theory of evolution, it doesn't hold water under scrutiny. Oh, it was Facebook. It was Ben. I don't want to do a whole thing on evolution, but it's the more you learn, the more you read up on the lack of evidence in the theory of evolution, the more you realize that when they built up the theory of evolution, it was a lot of hand waving and a lot of just, there's no missing link. It's a missing chain, right? Like I always use the example of the whale. They use like 5 different creatures to fill in the gap of a creature who was on the land to a freaking blue whale. And it's like, you're missing probably millions of missing links in that chain. You don't have chain. It's like taking 5 just totally okay. Sorry, I don't want to say they're totally different. I mean, they are different because obviously they're not the same thing. But it was just the way John Lamarck first came up with this thing, because he was a curator at the British Museum. He found 4 or 5 different animals that or 4 or 5 different fossils, sorry, that they were like slightly larger than each other, and they kind of somewhat resembled each other stage to stage. And he just kind of lined them up and he said, oh, look, this creature must have become this creature. It was like a little dog thing to a horse. And he said, oh, they must have evolved. And then Erasmus Darwin was his buddy, and they came up with this first generation theory of evolution based on nothing. It's like saying that a fox evolved into a hyena, evolved into a freaking cat. I don't know, whatever, just lining stuff up and then assuming that there's a missing chain of links between all of them. It's what the whole theory is based on. And it's the same thing they do with whales. It's the same thing they do with everything. For crying out loud, they try to say the T-Rex turned into a chicken. And it's so full of gaps like that. And assumptions like the radiometric dating thing is based on assumptions. The assumption that we've had a constant state of the atmosphere going back 50,000 years, because I think it goes back 50,000 years. Also, coal routinely dates at 12,000 years, which kind of throws a monkey wrench in the whole "the Earth is millions of years old" thing. Central Park rocks were formed by glacial gradation. Bro, go look at it. Glacial gradation does not carve things to look exactly like giant trees. Those layers in the Central Park rocks look no different than bent rock layers you see in rocks out west. Gosh, I feel like I need to dig it up. It doesn't. It looks exactly like a freaking tree. But don't believe your eyes. Believe your training, your indoctrination. Wyoming and parts of the surrounding states are loaded with volcanic and geothermal activity. Devil's Tower is a remnant of ancient volcanic activity. There's no volcano on Earth that would create that. Sorry. When you went from bashing Mormonism to itching ear stuff from flat earthers. No. I told you I don't believe in flat Earth. Flat Earth is impossible. Just because of the sunset. That's all you need is the sunset to prove flat Earth doesn't work. Yes, the code developed through natural selection. Right. DNA has to be the most compelling evidence for design that there is. It's literally the Rosetta Stone of the designer. True. And that's another, DNA is another evidence against evolution. DNA is an error correcting code. DNA corrects its own errors. So it's like you got. Look, I'll see if I can simplify this. The bacteria, any given bacteria, replicates at a rate billions of times faster than a human. And the human is one of the slowest developing creatures on Earth, right? I think the whale might take as long to get to reproductive age. But bacteria, they've tried to force bacteria into mutation. They do, right? Bacteria do mutate, but they try to use this as, look, evidence. Bacteria mutates, so obviously everything mutates. Well, bacteria never mutates into anything other than bacteria. Just another bacteria that does something a little bit different, like digests plastic or something like that. Environmental changes, force changes into the whatever genome of the bacteria. And they try to use that to say, oh, well, look at, let's go up a stage to an insect. First of all, if you look at the fossil record, the insects from tens of millions of years ago, 100 million years ago, are exactly the same as the insects we have today. Exactly the same. There's been no evolution of the honeybee or the ant or the wasp. They're exactly the same because we have them caught in amber from millions and millions of years ago. So even those populations, which wasps, insects, the fastest reproducing, you can wipe out an ant nest and there'll be another ant nest from 3 weeks later with millions of ants. That's how fast freaking ants replicate, right? So ants, which are whatever a stage creature-wise, one of the lowest stages of creation creatures, the fastest replicating creatures, are identical to our earliest fossil ants stuck in amber. Freaking identical. Okay, ants have not evolved. Bacteria does not evolve beyond being bacteria. There's no way, given the limited population size of a whale species, and how long it takes for a whale species to reach a gestation age. So it's generational. Call it a decade, call it 15. I think it might be around 15 years, but just call it a decade. With a limited population, with a limited time scale for each to reach maturity in order to create the next generation, there isn't enough time in the 18 billion years of the assumed universe for whales to have evolved from non-aquatic animals. It's not within the realm of possibility. Never mind the 4 to 5 billion years the planet's been around. Never mind the 100 million years the whale-like creatures were supposed to have been around. It's just not possible in any way, shape, or form. There's not enough genetic abnormalities because DNA is an error-correcting code. Almost every mutation, forced or otherwise, is a detriment to the creature. Meaning that if you have a mutation in a creature, that creature usually dies. And if not, it's a benign mutation, like a freaking 6-digit on a cat. So there's so much evidence against evolution. You have to unwash your brain because it's been brainwashed to believe in it. It is an old volcano. What? Yeah, there's no volcano. Sorry. All-powerful being got tired and needed to rest. Well, by rest, it just means he ceased to create. So we use light to transfer data. They split an entangled electron pair. This entangled pair twists. We can use twists to represent more information. What about that proves God? You're hopeless, bro. So if Devil's Tower is a tree, why isn't it fractured at the top? Or was Godzilla a lumberjack and cut it down with a saw? Well, that's the big if. That's the big what and the big how. A bunch of these giant trees were cut down. Now, if you believe the Book of Enoch, which oddly enough attacks this, angels cut them down. If you believe the Book of Enoch. There is a volcano fairly close to Devil's Tower, the Yellowstone super volcano. Okay, volcanoes don't... Have you ever seen a volcano? I've seen all kinds of volcanoes. Mount St. Helens, the volcanoes in Hawaii. I've seen videos of a billion volcanoes. Well, not a billion, you know. Volcanoes never create tree-like structures. It doesn't happen. All you're going to get is geologists claiming it happened. They have no evidence that it happened. What's the evidence? Trees, when they split at the base, have jagged fractures that remain long after the trees fell. There's one of those giant trees that looks like that. But yeah, these were felled. If a Devil's Tower is a tree, where is the log? I don't know. Maybe they burned it. Theistic evolution makes more sense than atheistic evolution. At least there's someone in charge of the mess. Look, doctor, I was a theistic evolutionist when I became a Christian. Because I was raised an evolutionist, because I was an agnostic. I was raised an agnostic. So I believed it, and I believed it fit with the 6 days of creation and all that stuff. But that's why when I started discovering all this information, all these arguments against evolution, I didn't have a dog in the fight, because it didn't matter to me. I believe in God. I believe in the Bible. I believe theistic evolution fit. So I didn't have a dog in the fight. So I could see the evidence for both sides. And it just, the evidence that proved evolution could be false just outweighed it. If this is all designed, the designer sucks. Kids with cancer, death by natural disaster. If God's real and he meant for all this, he's an a-hole. That's what happens when sin entered the world and broke the perfection of the world. I know it's a trite answer, but it's the truth. Sometimes the truth sucks. And that's the case because we live in a fallen world, which the fall is from sin. The world was created good, and it was created perfect, and it was not intended to have thorns and thistles and all that stuff, but the world was cursed because of the first sin. Some chickens can be really mean. That could be the T-Rex in them. Assuming things came from parents with tiny changes added up over time. Crazy. It's obviously God magic. It doesn't add up. People are people. Humans are humans are humans are humans. Dogs are dogs are dogs are dogs. Cats are cats are cats are cats. Do you know that all cats, given size, can breed with each other? I mean, all their offspring aren't necessarily going to be, what's the word? Productive. Although in some rare instances they are. Like lions and tigers, when they create ligers or tigons, Usually they can't reproduce, but once in a blue moon they can. So I'm not sure what that's about. Evolution has way too many. Oh yeah, Matt Bob, what's up, brother? Matt Bob popping in and say hello. What's up? Masakula. All these new people. Evolution doesn't make sense because it assumes rocks become organic. It also assumes bacteria or fish can become human. That's transmutation. That's alchemy. Oh, that's pretty. It's simplified, but yeah, the basis of that is accurate. This is the dangers of a religion on your brain, kids. You mean the religion of evolution? True. What's up, Bats? All interesting questions. I look forward to my moment with God. God, I got some questions, sir. All questions will be answered. No answer, obviously. I don't know what you're referring to. Why did God put the vestigial back leg bones in the whale's skeleton? Why do you assume they're vestigial back leg bones? Because somebody told you they were? Look, just because someone interprets a thing to be a thing doesn't make that interpretation accurate. It's they would interpret it to be that thing because that's their worldview. How does making light twist by pairing electrons prove God, Mike? You presented it as if it was. What is the evidence? You want me to play it again? I'll play it again. Maybe you weren't here.
Forget everything you thought you knew about light. Actually, well, keep most of it. Just add 48 dimensions. Scientists running what was supposed to be a routine quantum optics experiment stumbled onto something that no one was looking for and no one fully expected. Entangled light, the quantum phenomenon where two particles of light become linked regardless of distance, doesn't just carry information the way physicists assumed. It contains hidden topological structures of staggering complexity, specifically up to 48 dimensions worth of complexity. To understand why that's extraordinary, you need to understand what was assumed beforehand. Quantum information has typically been encoded in what are called qubits, quantum bits that exist in a superposition of two states simultaneously. Two states, two dimensions. The entire architecture of quantum computing has been built around manipulating those two states as efficiently as possible. What this research found is that light itself, through a single property called orbital angular momentum, can naturally carry topological structures spanning 48 dimensions simultaneously, not 2, 48. Each dimension is a potential channel for encoding information. Each channel multiplies the complexity and capacity of what can be transmitted. The researchers are describing it as finding a vast new alphabet for quantum information. Previously, science was working with 2 letters. This suggests the alphabet actually has 48 at the minimum. The practical implications are significant and will take years to fully work out. Quantum communication that uses this dimensional richness could carry exponentially more information through a single beam of light than current systems manage. Quantum encryption built on 48-dimensional structures would be so complex that breaking it would make today's unbreakable encryption look like a bicycle lock.
So again, this was discovered. This was not created or invented. I saw one volcano in Mexico. I can't remember the name of it though. All right. There's a pretty good chain of evidence regarding horses, from multi-toed to the one hoof. No, again, that's the same thing. That was John Lamarck that invented that by he was a curator of the British Museum in Erasmus Darwin's time, and they were buddies. And so they together came up with this theory of evolution by lining up a group of fossils that kind of resembled each other. And then it's not a chain. It's a few links. The chain is missing because, and this is another thing. So the requirements for any individual creature to have been fossilized are so rare that the environmental situation required for a creature to be fossilized are so rare that one scientist I was reading said it's literally a miracle that any given species finds its way into the fossil record. It's so rare that if there were as many species as evolution demands, every single fossil we find should be a new link. Charles Darwin said this himself in Origin of Species, that it's over time it would be the fossil record that would basically bear out whether or not his theory was true, because we should find new fossil species filling in that chain. Like with every friggin' fossil we find should be a new species. That's how rare the circumstances of fossilization are, right? But the math doesn't add up because we have literally billions of copies of the exact same fossil. We have the whole collection. We have 250,000 fossil species. We've got literally uncounted billions and billions and billions and billions of fossils, right? Extant. We have so many fossils, you can go buy fossil stone and decorate your bathroom with it. But they're all the same species. They're all that same 250,000 species. I've been making this argument for 30 years. You know how many fossil species we had 30 years ago? 250,000. You know how many we have today? 250,000. We may have found a few more. Probably not even 1,000 more. We've got the collection, man. We've got the whole set. We have every Star Wars card. You can buy all the packs you want. You're not going to find any more Star Wars cards because we have the whole freaking set. Again, I'm being a little facetious. But no, we're not going to find more to fill in that missing chain regarding the horses. Even as a young Earth creationist, I'm an odd one. I think some of the feathered dinosaurs are real. Velociraptor, Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx is a bird, not a. There's a modern bird with claws on its wings, like those animals. I mean, there's friggin'. Is it? Well, they don't have teeth. I was thinking about like geese, how they have those gnarly freaking ridges in their mouth that look like teeth. No, first of all, velociraptors do not have feathers. There was a small dinosaur they claimed had, quote, proto feathers. They weren't feathers. And Archaeopteryx was reclassified as bird. It's just a bird that looked very aggressive. And again, this is the same situation. Archaeopteryx, they found one Archaeopteryx, made the news, made headlines. And then what they find? Oh, they found another one. And then they found another one. And then they found another one. And then they found a bunch of them. But did they find the next Archaeopteryx after the Archaeopteryx? Whatever, the next stage of that? No. The Archaeopteryx was a bird. It made its way into the fossil record. It was a cool bird with freaking, claws on its thing. But like you just said, the modern birds have claws on its wings too. I don't think 6 days of work is poetic. He don't know what a day is to God, right? Could be millions of years. Yeah, but it says in the evening and the morning was the first day. So kind of puts a fine point on it. Also, it's God. He doesn't need millions of years. This is a cult. I'm done. Good luck. A cult of one. You're so funny. It's such a cult that all these people are disagreeing with me. I think you don't understand the word cult. The irony with evolutionary argument is that the only solid evidence we have of genetic manipulation comes from intelligent beings. Yeah, true. I got questions, but I'm still down with the carpenter. I got answers, bro. We currently, after the genetics of stuff in this day and age, we currently alter, like a mule. Oh, yeah, the crossbreeding. The only difference between a yellow tabby and a Siberian tiger is 800 pounds. So here's the thing. Also the weird thing about cats is the female cat can choose whether or not to get pregnant. But if you could take a yellow tabby and a male yellow tabby and impregnate a Siberian tiger? I mean, that genetically it would work, but can you imagine how cute the little... Aw, I want one. There are more dimensions of light than there are genders. Massa, I'll answer for you, Mike. You need to justify and give account for words, math, numbers, logic, reason, science. All metaphysical concepts need to be justified epistemically. Correct. Don't hear him say God did it or that it's proof of a God. Just a new way to transfer informational light. Well, he's not. You're a lost cause, Grinder. The fool in his heart. Forget paired electrons with light interactions. People need to justify the existence of truth itself and all metaphysical concepts we use every day. Yep. LOL. Moses evolved a stick into a snake. Corpse Grinder, I'll argue the point. You need to justify where metaphysical concepts come from, like where's my blah, 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 I assume every day, but have no physical way to be proven right. Well, I don't. Corpse Grinder isn't a, as far as I can remember, he's not a what's they call a materialist atheist. He's an agnostic atheist. So he doesn't know, but he leans to the foolish side of rejecting everything that requires God. Matt says, my real issue with God, he's all-knowing and all-powerful. He knew Adam and Eve would eat the fruit, but still put the tree in the garden. Right. Why is that an issue? He had to give them a choice. If he didn't give them the choice, they would just be automatons. Love is a choice. You think if your kids don't have a choice whether or not to love you, that love means anything? Do you choose to love your wife, Matt? I know you do. If you didn't have a choice, would it be love? No, it would not. Evolution isn't true. Transmutation isn't real. If information exists, then something created that information. Right. An information creator, an intelligence is required for information to exist, to have purpose, to have meaning. And a creator is required, an intelligent creator is required for life to have meaning, for anything to have meaning, for mass to have meaning. An intelligence must pre-exist for logic, reason, all those metaphysical things that you mentioned exist. If information can exist without a human or animal mind or any creature, then something is creating that information, and evolution assumes information exists, but it can't tell you who created it, right? That's why I always go back to abiogenesis, because you can't get here from there, right? You can't create information out of lightning striking a puddle of amino acids. It can't be done. What are your thoughts on the U.S.-Iran conflict? Well, that's out of the blue. I'm pro-Iranian, like pro-Persian. I grew up with a Persian fella who him and his family had to escape the Islamic regime back in the 80s. So he actually grew up to be a pro skater. Salman Agha, if anybody knows who that is. And so I had a heart for this conflict. I had a heart for those people since I was a kid, and watching how happy they were and seeing the Iranians celebrate around the world at the toppling of the killing of these freaking bastards filled my heart with joy. War sucks, but sometimes war is the answer. I hate it. Everybody hates war, but you know what I'm hearing over and over again from the Iranian people is like, yeah, they're bombing all over the place, but we're more scared that they'll stop bombing and let the regime, and this, I'm actually frightened about this too, but from the latest stuff that's coming out from Trump, that they're going to negotiate. They're more afraid of Americans negotiating with the regime and leaving the regime in place than they are dying in an errant bombing raid. They love this war. The freedom-loving people of Iran, who the Iranian regime just slaughtered in the dozens of thousands over the past month, over the past 2 months, they are thrilled that, look, sometimes, as crappy and as a horrible thing as war is, sometimes war is the only answer. You can't negotiate with terrorists. You can't negotiate with Islamic extremists. It doesn't work. I'm not opposed to evolution. It's God working the clay of life. Yeah, but the evidence doesn't match up, Matt. It would take me a while, but I could sit down and walk you through all the evidence. It's like, everyone is in a cult. It's a cult of truth. 89% of all fossils are marine life. I wonder why that is. Because the first stuff that would have been affected by a global flood. Are you being sarcastic? The first effects of a global flood would have been creating the circumstances required for fossilization would be runoff from the stuff that's above ground, flooding into the marine layers, and then rapidly burying the stuff. The life on the above ground, non-marine life, would have, obviously, because they're trying to save their lives, tried to make their way up to higher ground, higher and higher and higher. So the stuff that could make it to the highest point of the highest ground would be the last to be fossilized. So there would be a gradation of things that couldn't move fast enough to get away from it. Mike is my cult leader. Welcome to the cult of Mike. I'm a slave to truth. Amen. Mike wants a litter of mini tigers. Who doesn't? Who doesn't? I mean, you'd have to be crazy. I love freaking cats, dude. I love big cats. My cat, Max, he's a big cat. He's like, I don't know, 15, 18 pounds, something like that. It's a big cat. I love him. And I want a bigger one. I see that there's a girl on Instagram that has this, I don't know what kind of cat it's called, but it's like this big. Ah, my arm. Ah. Okay, that's one of the positions I can't put my arm in. Oh. Whoo. Wake up call. Mike, how are you feeling? I got a little problem with my arm. I got like a nerve damage or something. So I put my arm in certain, it feels like when I had a torn rotator cuff and I'd go like this and it'd just be like, and this shooting pain. My left arm does that now since the stroke. We're comparing worldviews and paradigms at this point. Either truth exists or it doesn't. If truth exists, a truth giver must exist. In reality, the world wouldn't work if these things didn't exist and were just made up. Right. It's not a choice if he's all knowing. Yes, it is. If you know your kid's going to do something, but you let him do it anyways, did you make him do it? Like, you know he's going to do it. But you don't want him to do it, but you know he's going to do it. And he does it. Did you make him do it? No, you didn't make him do it. It is a choice. Knowing something is not making something happen. Choosing to love my wife is different than omnipresent and all-knowing. It is a choice if he's all-knowing. It's not a choice if you determine and had it written and presented. I'm way over an hour here. I don't know why I keep going. Because really, I don't have anything to do today. I'm just going to keep going for a little bit. And predestined for them to make the choice. Big difference, right? Dogs can crossbreed with wolves and coyotes. That doesn't prove they evolved from a bowl of biotic soup billions of years ago. No, but it proves that they're all the same kind. After their kind, they can procreate. The people are using the light to communicate. The people give the light meaning. 1 or 2 candles lit if the window has basically 1 or 2. All right, Corpse Grinder, you're just obstinate on the point. It's like discovering something has all these different paths and layers to it that really shouldn't. Well, I don't want to say it shouldn't exist. It was a complexity dozens of times more complex than anything we could have imagined before, and you just blow it off because you don't want to believe that a mind created it. With it, your critiques are pretty meaningless. Without it, your critiques are... Oh, he's still talking to Corpse Grinder. Global flood, LOL. See, this Corpse Grinder, he laughs at the single most corroborated historical event in the history of mankind because he preferred to believe the theories of a bunch of people who have only been alive for the last 100 years, right? Never mind the witnessing and the accounts and the corroboration of 600 different disparate, that means unconnected people groups from around the world who have the same story about the global flood. And it's a regional flood. That's the dumbest argument anyone ever makes, is that the global flood myths are all regional floods. As if every single global flood, see, in all these global floods, it's one family who survives and never sees another human being other than their family that survived the flood, right? Because everyone else was wiped out. Now, I can understand if you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen anybody else. This is my global flood. And then, like, a year later, oh, Jimbo down the street survived too. Oh, thank God. Then there wouldn't be a myth. Then there wouldn't be a legend. There wouldn't be a story about them being the only surviving family, would there? It doesn't make any rational sense, but you have to ignore what is rational because you are predisposed to accepting all the malarkey that we've been force-fed by our leftist educational system for the last 100 years. There's a lot of mythology stories that have a flood narrative. Yes, 600. Are you saying you don't have a choice because he's all-knowing? That means you don't have a choice. I know. I hear people with that mentality. It doesn't add up. If you're skeptical with narratives and history, then that would mean that you can accept anything historical. You can't accept anything historical, I believe you meant. FYI, there is way more ocean than land on Earth. Yeah. One man's scientific evidence of God may only sound like ontological evidence to another. And that's why I make the point that proof is subjective. Evidence can be, proof is subjective. Evidence is or can be objective. But whether or not an individual takes that objective evidence and it becomes a convincing proof to them is completely subjective. Scientific evidence equals materialism. I don't believe that. Science was by and large founded by Christians trying to figure out how God's world works using scientific evidence. It was a proof. At some point along the line, modern science removed God from a study that was intended to prove God. That was I don't know when that happened, honestly. I love to have a Maine Coon, but they're dang expensive. I know, Maine Coons. God, that's such a great cat. I'd love to have a Maine Coon. $3,500. See, what you need to do, Tina, is you need to make the investment and buy a breeding pair of Maine Coons. You know how many times a Maine Coon can litter? How many times cats can litter? I think our cat Lucy had 3 litters in a year. Freaking whore. She kept going outside and getting knocked up by neighbor cats, so we'd have all these different cats. She had 3 litters in a year. Can you imagine if you did that with a Maine Coon and you're selling them Sell them at a bargain basement price of $2,000 each. You just bought a house. Words, truth, math, purpose are all immaterial. Science assumes things can't prove them. I'm not a fan of animals. Cost too much time, money, and energy, like most stuff. All right. Thought exercise. You got 2 doors, right and left. Open the doors, and there's another set behind the doors. God knows every choice you'll make. He knew before time and started it. Right. But it's still your choice which door you take. Chuck Missler used to give this example. You're walking down a hallway, and every 2 steps, there's a door. Door on your left, door on your right. And you're walking down and walking down, and there's like just endless doors. And one day you're like, you know what? I'm going to walk through this door. And you walk through the door. It's your choice, completely your choice. And then you close the door, and there's the wedding supper of the Lamb is there. And on the other back side of the door that you just closed, it says, chosen before, chosen before the beginning of the world, or something like that. So yeah, God knew what choice he'd make because he's outside of time, but he let you make the choice. It's not a conundrum. Just because, like I said, if you know your kid's going to do something and you let him do it, does that mean you made him do it? No. Science needs to prove words exist before it can even try to prove it. Still tell him not to do it as well. Yeah. If I know my kids are going to eat poisoned fruit, I wouldn't plant the tree. Well, that's you. They had to eat the fruit, otherwise they would be immortal in their sin. And you don't want them to be immortal in their sin, because then they can never go back to paradise with you in the resurrection. There are church fathers that talk about foreknowledge and how it works. Yeah, not my expertise. Kind? Are angels a kind? Is God a kind? They can all crossbreed, so we must be God, angel, humankind, right? Oh, that's an interesting. That is an interesting thing. So you don't think that? See here, the thing is that angels can take human form, humankind form, I guess, because they became creatures of flesh who could eat, which means they had a digestive tract, which apparently also meant that they could procreate, but they're taking the human form. Angels are not by nature in human form, I don't think, although we have limited information on that. And also God being able to place himself in Mary's womb, that's not crossbreeding. That's called a miracle. I love Jesus, but I have a few issues with his dad. Like, what? Without the correct starting point in your worldview, then your questions don't make a lot of sense. Flood myths are global. Hard not to believe it, right? Have you seen Matt Rhodes' Dead Gods series? It's highly speculative take on the pre-flood world. No, I have not. The fruit is not poison, right? No, it's the choice. The fruit is the knowledge of. I think Matt was making a metaphor, but yeah, it's the knowledge of good and evil. It's the fruit itself wasn't good and evil. It was the knowledge. It was the choice. The choice is the knowledge, right? I am choosing to go against what God has told me to do. That's called sin. That is the knowledge of good and evil. And the sin, which was not good, is what broke the universe. Gotta go. We should talk more. I prayed for you when I heard about the struggle. Oh, thanks, buddy. Proof is math and liquor. Evidence is data that can be interpreted differently. Proof is math and liquor. Evidence is data that can be interpreted differently. Right, but evidence can, well, again, that's what I'm saying. Proof, if evidence proves something to you, the evidence is objective. But the proof is whether or not you accept it. Bottom line, maybe we'll end it here, is that no one can truly understand the deepest mysteries of the world in which we live. We build theories and myths to explain such things. Thus, it's easy for those who wish to control the narratives to construct bold, huge lies. I like Chuck. Rest in peace. Oh, Chuck Norris. Yeah. Yeah. It's a pickle because he's allowing us to make choices that destroy our soul. Again, without choice, there's no love. So your only other option is he doesn't create us at all. He already had the angels, right? Look, I make this I can make this very clear because everybody knows there's children who hate their parents, right? For one reason or the other, whether it's deserved or not. There's children who hate their parents. I have 6 kids. If my choice was, I have 6 kids, by the time they grow up, 3 of them will hate me forever. But 3 of them will love me forever. Would I choose as a father with this pre-knowledge to not have any? Here's my options. I could not have any kids, or I can have 6. I don't have 6 kids. I have 5 kids. Why did I say 6? All right, just say I had 6, just to even it up. My options are don't have any kids, so I will never know the love of a child, and I will never know the love of that relationship. Or have 6 kids, half of whom are going to hate me, but half of them who will love me. Will it absolutely break my heart to have the 3 that hate me? Of course. Of course. It'd kill me. But would I sacrifice that and deal with that pain to have the 3 kids that love me? Of course. Of course. But I'm a father, so I understand this. Matt, you would understand this, right? I'm not asking you to pick which kids of yours are going to hate you. But I'm just saying, if you knew for a fact that if you're going to have 6 kids, 3 of them are going to hate you, would you still have the 6 kids? Yeah. I don't know anybody who would say no. Oh boy, we're going into Nephilims. You need to justify existence of method. Okay. My head hurts now. Jesus, take the wheel, bro. So God wasn't 100% human because there was no breeding. He just placed himself inside him. Now, you know the freaking ontology, dude. He's 100% man and 100% woman. But this wasn't breeding. God didn't impregnate Mary. God took his spirit and placed it in the human creation from Mary. He didn't become a sperm. Actually, I don't know. The spirit just begat another person from Mary. The irony is that people that argue for their worldview, oh my gosh, who the heck keeps buzzing me? Are always moral relativists. They can't justify why anything is true or right or wrong. Yeah, it's true. In your worldview, kids wouldn't exist or people or anything. That's a consistency with your worldview. Chuck Misler, he was the best, man. You are conflating terms and flip-flopping between common usage and technical usages. Why is lying wrong? You still haven't justified why anything is true or right or wrong. He won't. He can't. All these questions come from people who don't care about consistent worldview. That's the issue. True. I'm not a precept bro. I don't think your precept argument is valid. I don't have the dogma to start with a God. It's just axiomatic, bro. Because the other option is nonsensical. Norris too. Oh, Chuck Missler, not Chuck Norris. Yeah, I miss Chuck Missler too. Verbal roundhouse. Norris is a physical. True. God 100% man makes him mankind. I know. Glad I got here just as the stream started. I know I'm an hour 25 in. I'm usually... I should get to work. Fine, then I arbitrarily declare your position. He's not even listening to you, Masakula. He won't respond to anything you're saying. DJ, are we talking morality? Well, atheist or religious, it's a problem everyone has to deal with. Right. Most people are moral. All right, got to the end of the chat. All right, that's it then. Thank you everybody for being here, and hopefully I can keep doing this. God is mankind. You just said he wasn't the same kind because there wasn't breeding. You flip-flopping. No, you know what a miracle is, Corpse Grinder? You recognize, right, that a miracle is something that happens by the act of God outside of the purview of the norm, right? So if God says a kind can only breed within its kind, a miracle would be something that happens outside of the norm of a kind only breeding with its kind. And it's not breeding in the sense of two things smashing. It's not. You're being so pedantic, and you know you are, just to be obstinate, honestly, which is fine. God is magic, and so anything is possible. God, the answer to everything is magic. Well, no, the answer to evolution is magic. The answer to abiogenesis is magic, because you have to believe in that hooey in order to get here and maintain your atheism, which is what you do. So God bless everybody. We'll see you on the next one. Hop into the Discord if you want to continue the conversation. We'll see you on the next exciting episode of Cross Examinations.